Welcome to Love and Speak the Truth with me, Sister Brenda, the podcast where all voices are heard with diverse guests from all over the globe. We make space for stories of integrity, justice, freedom, and joy. So come along. We're not afraid to get into the tough stuff, and we're actually not afraid to laugh along the way. So buckle up, open your heart, open your mind, and let's get this party started. It is a real honor to welcome Sister Melanie Paradis to the show today. Sister Melanie brings a bright and infectious energy, and I think you'll find her perspectives on formation, that is, formation for sisters, and really formation for life, to be both thoughtful and inspiring. She comes with a genuine enthusiasm for accompanying and supporting individuals who are seeking to live their best and most authentic life. A Franciscan sister, she has served in leadership as teacher, spiritual companion, and as formator for young women discerning religious life. What strikes me most about Sister Melanie is her openness to God's plan and her remarkable gift for seeing possibility everywhere. It gives me great joy to share her experiences and insights with both the curious and the cautious among us. Welcome, Sister Melanie. Well, it is my great pleasure to welcome Sister Melanie Paradis. I am so glad to see you. Normally we are together in choir. That's about the only time I actually have spent any time with you. But now today we get to talk real talk. And I am so excited that you're here. Thanks so much for saying yes to joining us today. Welcome.
There wasn't too much arm twisting, so this is good. I'm glad to be here. Where would you like me to start?
I think start off with just sharing something about your life.
Well, I have to tell you how I got here. Originally from New England, so to be in the Midwest is still a challenge to me, but that's all good because being a member of the Wheaton Franciscans has been like coming home. I'm a teacher by profession and by personality, I guess. And I've done formation work, I've done leadership work, and now I'm doing formation again, which is a little bit of my passion creatively because I can work with adults in a way that helps them to best learn the way they know. So I really love that. I've always thought, even for kids, create the context for people to learn what they need to learn. Don't just tell them, give them experiences. So for example, okay, this will be a crazy one. I'm teaching 7th grade and they need to be able to follow instructions, right? So I give them the homework of write a set of instructions on how to make some kind of food. So this kid comes in with instructions for how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And he reads the instructions so that another person will follow it. And the other kid is doing exactly what he says. So he says, take out the peanut butter jar. So she takes it out and holds it. Put it on the table. It doesn't say that in the instructions. Peanut butter on the sandwich. Am I supposed to take it out of the jar? Am I supposed to put the jar on top of the sandwich or whatever? By creating things that engage the imagination and thought, that just gets me going. That doesn't mean I made the community make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. It just means that I'm not going to tell people what to do. I'm going to listen first and then conversations.
That's interesting because I was interested in the fact that you are doing formation work right now. And first, I would want to know what you would say to a general listening population about what formation work means. For me to ask that question, I've gone through formation as such. I think life is formation, learning how to live. But you might want to share a little bit about what that means for the average person. And would an average person go through formation, for instance? Or is this formation just for sisters, religious sisters?
There's ongoing transition in life and formation in that if you're living an aware life, then hopefully you're learning all the time. Because if not, you're dead. Let's
Mm.
keep learning. Or I prefer the word integration when I talk about religious life. If someone is interested in entering religious life, there's a period of integration because, oh my goodness, you're coming from a totally different life and you're coming into this life, especially for an adult who may have lived a very fruitful life before they come to religious life. There's a time of transition. So I entered at 28 and I had already been teaching for 7, 8 years, out of college. And I already had a pretty good idea of religious life because my dad had been in the seminary and we were just surrounded by church, so to speak.
Oh.
So this wasn't anything new. But for people who come wanting something more, there needs to be a time to honor their experience and then integrate them as gently as possible and as strongly as possible to what life in a religious community might look like. Because you know as well as I do that anytime a new person comes in, the community changes. And
Right.
anytime a person leaves, the community changes.
Mhm.
I don't know if that answers your question. I think I went all around it. But one, I think we are all responsible for the formation of our own lives.
Yeah.
We're ongoing learning. Two, you can have formation coming into any new place, any new job, any new situation where you have to learn food, language, culture, etc. And that's
Mhm.
what happens when you come into religious life. It's different.
Something, when you started talking about, the whole integration piece of entering religious life, years ago, many years ago, when I entered the congregation, my formator started talking about family life and what family life was like for me. A lot of people that I met in religious life had moms and dads. I was raised by a single mom who was the greatest single mom. She was worth, yeah, 10 parents, right? Anyway, one of the things we finally got to in some of our conversation, as you know, you sit with your formation person and you discern, the different questions and directions and so on. She said, "Are you sure you're not entering religious life because you don't think married life is for you and you with your father issues?" And I didn't fight that. I think I was what, 24, 25. And it was interesting that she said that, never dealt with father issues. The man was a jerk, he was a wretch, and I had to forgive him for being that so that I could move on, right? So I was in 10 years of counseling to
Mhm.
father issues. And for me, that was transforming in a way because you don't realize what you don't know. Even at this stage in life, I'm still thinking about the things that I don't know, and I'm not going to know everything. But formation for me was always this place of discovery, becoming who I am, becoming
Mhm.
the. And for many people, that's what
Yeah,
formation.
I think it's becoming your best self, you
Mm,
know, and discovering what that is. I mean, in my childhood, so let's say, okay, the 1960s, after Vatican II, my family was part of the underground church. Maybe we shouldn't say that, but it's too long ago, so
mm,
but we were experimenting. We had priests at the house having mass around the coffee table. We're part of the Christian family movement, and my parents had faith and Bible study at the house. We were not afraid of the priests. We were not afraid of the sisters. They were just regular people like everyone else who just happened to make a different choice in a lifestyle, and
mhm,
it was perfectly normal for us. And I
mhm.
think that's why first I fought being a sister because I didn't wanna wear a veil. I thought I'd keep it in the trunk of the car in case I ever got pulled over, and then I'd just take out the veil, you know? But I wanted to make sure that it was how I could best be myself in prayer and service to the people of God as I saw God calling me. And that was all part of our regular conversation in my family. We had religious conversations around the dinner table. Even in the dressing room at the local store, there was a note. You know how they all write graffiti. And on this one stall, it said, "For a spiritual evening, call," and there was my phone number. And I was
Oh,
like, "Okay, this is a little weird." I mean, there was always room at the table. There was always interesting conversation going on. So this was not a foreign thing for me. And I want to make sure that the people who are entering feel like it's a continuation of their life
Mhm.
rather than, oh my goodness, I'm going to be better than everybody else, or I'm sister, or you can treat me differently. There's none of that. You don't even get past the door with that attitude. But
Yeah.
that it's a continuation of their life. And oh my goodness, I just seen people blossom and become who they've always, I don't know, not who they thought they could be, but who they felt called to be.
Your best
Yeah.
self. Yeah, I like that definition. I like that description of formation is that work on becoming your best self. And the work becomes not work when you find joy in figuring it out and
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
finding ways to better your situation. Yeah, the thing that strikes me is that today we are living in communities of many, many elderly people, and you have the few people interested in entering now. And oftentimes they're, you know, older than the 17, 18, 20, 25-year old. They're coming in at a later stage. Diminishment is at the forefront now of religious life. Who gets called to diminishment? And maybe that's not what we're being called to, but that's what we're faced with every day.
I think about my grandmother living with us, so we're a multi-generational
Mhm.
home. I think about in the past how multi-generations lived together. Might have been grandma and grandpa were upstairs and you were all downstairs. How do we, the younger ones, energize and the older ones provide wisdom? Even though there is the diminishment both mentally and physically and number-wise, I still believe the religious life is viable,
Mm,
and it doesn't have to be a lot of numbers. You know, history of religious life, the numbers were only that high probably in the last century.
mhm,
So, here we are going into a dip that allows us to see what is really the need at this time. I mean, American sisters have created hospital systems, educational systems, services systems, spirituality, all kinds of systems that are now being run by lay people. So they finished that task of their work that really was the last century
mhm.
or even the 1800s when they were called to the United States to serve immigrants. And now they're finding other ways to companion, to be presence with, I mean, you were at the liturgy with Cardinal Supich and the immigrants and how the standing together is a
Yeah,
witness, the having your back. It's the presence
mhm.
wherever you are. You
Yes.
don't have to be in a role, like in a job.
I completely understand that and resonate with that because for me, I think one of the biggest things that religious life can give to the future of our human community is that we are now so much more conscious that we're not provincial, we're not local, we are global. We're
Oh
not,
my goodness.
you know,
Mhm.
religious members have lived for better or for worse in situations where we have had to tolerate difference in much more intimate ways than the average person. When somebody enters, they might come from the Italian, the
Yeah.
Polish, Irish, in my case, Black Americans. I didn't meet a Black sister till I saw the sisters in Kenya.
There are no French Canadians in my region.
We've been living this diversity, this
Yeah,
global sense of coming together as one human family, at least through the last couple of centuries. There's something there that we can model as we prepare,
exactly.
ourselves to be people of the world.
Well, you belong to an international congregation, and so do I.
Mhm,
And I think from just what you've been saying, I can hear the gift that an international congregation offers. So for us, we're looking at East Timor, Indonesia. Then we go to Africa, where we're in Malawi. And then we go to Europe, where it all started. but is diminishing. France, Germany, the Netherlands, Italy, we come to the United States, we go to Brazil, we go to Suriname. When we come together internationally, people always wonder, how do you get along? And yet, we always talk about having the language of the heart because we have a common core, we have a common charism, and it doesn't just have to be our immediate founder, but as Franciscans, we go even to Francis and Clare. When we were on pilgrimage in Italy last year as a mixed group and met an American group that was there, they were just lay people on pilgrimage, and they were like, how do you all get along? Well, why not? Why wouldn't we get along? The respect for culture and differences, the respect for the approach of language. If you know more than one language, you can explain things differently. You can understand things differently. So I'm just always curious. I want to be where there's different and new. Well, maybe not all the time because I am an introvert, so I have to rest. But I like having the opportunity to, as you say, model what's possible in the world in just our little, whatever, 500 sister group.
How do you form for that? Because I think there's one of the things that's an ideal is that the ideal is that we are able to love one another and be together and work together and stand together, whatever it is. But how do you form? Because I know for myself, I am extremely oriented to the US American culture, and when I step out of that and go and live somewhere else, it's difficult for me to entertain that sense of confidence and belonging because there's so much difference around me. And I think what we do model is that we force ourselves, not
Mhm.
force in a negative way, but we challenge ourselves to stretch a little bit, even within our own country, to deal with difference. Then you go that much farther. It becomes harder and harder. But I think one of the things the world needs now is to be able to stretch ourselves to see the humanity and the value in people who live on another side of the world with another set of values.
So last September, we had an international pilgrimage, and I brought our novice. We started in Germany, where our founders was. We went to the Netherlands to visit our sisters, who are all quite elderly, 80s and 90s.
Mm.
And then we went to Assisi and spent time with Francis and to Rome. In that 30-person group, we had sisters from Indonesia, East Timor, Romania, Germany, and the US. I felt that it was really important for her, our novice, to have an experience of our international congregation. And I wasn't going to wait till she was like 5 years into the community because
Mhm.
this is what she's preparing for. She's preparing to be part of the congregation, not just our little 28 sister region in the United States. It's
Wow.
much greater. I think that younger people, all right, she's in her 50s, but even so, have a different ability, adaptability, maybe curiosity, have been exposed to so much more than I ever was, and she just fell in with the Indonesians and would learn all the songs and then she'd go with the Romanians, and then it was just being herself, but with others and letting others be themselves with her because that's gonna be her future. I remember when I entered, how excited I was to know that we had sisters in all kinds of other places and hoping that at the first time I was formation director, that I could kinda connect. And we did. We had our first international formation director meeting. And yes, people come at things differently, but how do we learn to respect that it's everything from money to the treatment of elderly? And money is really interesting because when you put someone from an Asian culture with someone from a European culture, it's vastly different.
Vastly.
Vastly different. So, but how do you even know that if you don't expose yourself to the experiences of having an international
Yeah. And it's a
experience?
part of that whole idea of showing up, isn't it? You show up and you come in with your own understanding, your own knowledge, your own ability to navigate the world, and then you say, "How do you do it? What
Exactly.
what's important to you here in all of this?" And you listen.
It's a lot of listening. There's a lot of listening
Yeah.
because it's like you soak things in through your skin. And when I was 17, I went and lived in France for a year and taught in a school in between high school and college. It took a few months, to get really fluent. And I just felt as if I soaked everything in through my skin. I was just like antenna everywhere. I didn't try to make everything American. Like I
Mhm.
jumped into the French experience. And I think that's what's really important because another time, I went on a trip with a senior group, let's just say. Um, this is before perestroika. So I was in the USSR. And we were in Baba Yar, where there was a horrible massacre, during World War II. And there's a beautiful monument. But you also see the monument, you see the valley where all the bodies were shot and thrown into. The Americans on the trip were talking all the time outside. There was no respect for the sacredness of the space, and I was so embarrassed. That's part of what we as a religious community or congregation can show that everybody has their own gifts that they're offering to the world, and you don't have to push yours onto everybody else. Be in the experience. Eat
Mhm.
the Italian food. You know, go to a restaurant and try to speak German. Oh my God, no. Like just put yourself in the other place,
Mhm.
not I am American, I would like a hamburger kind of thing. And
But
I think that's what gives me hope when I see in our intercommunity novitiate, there are 20 novices in the room. They're from India, Bangladesh, Tanzania, Kenya, Vietnam, and a few from the United States.
mm,
So that already at an early time, so this is the beginning of integration formation process, the person that I'm companioning is having an international experience, even within religious life.
I wanna jump on to your that image of soaking how did you say it? Soaking through your skin. Don't just listen with your ears and your eye that it becomes the
Yeah.
whole self immersed in it. I so love that image. You know why? Because it's almost like we have to become babies, children again. It's the little children who can really immerse themselves in ways that we cannot. We put up our masks and we put on our barriers, our heavy coats or whatever. And we fail to allow things to penetrate our being. We listen and we're not hearing anything.
Mhm.
We're seeing and we're not seeing anything because we're so imbued with our own way of being that nothing gets in.
And children have such joy in what they immerse themselves in, or
Yes.
such focus. My 6-year-old nephew, just great nephew, just lived through the blizzard out east, and they got 32 inches. And
Mhm.
he says he went outside and he was so amazed at how much snow there was. I mean, he's just a little guy. He comes back in and he says, "When you go outside in the snow, keep your feet in your boots." See how practical? But
Yeah.
his experience, there it is. How do we it's not simplify as if in dumbing down. I know when I get off a plane in another country, there's a whole other smell. There's a whole other feel. The air feels different. The smells are different. The tastes are different. The sounds are different.
Mhm.
Everything. How do you provide the opportunity for people to experience that they're one little piece of all those different pieces coming together?
Yeah,
And when they come together, it's great. Oh my
yeah.
goodness.
It takes time though, doesn't it? I realized that for myself because, when you mentioned the thing about hamburger a few minutes ago, I go places and I still want my kind of food. I still want to hear my kind of music. I still want my kind of things, but it takes time to let that go. And I think that's the thing that is going to make the difference because honestly, we're so used to the quick answers, the commercials, the sound bites, and then we think we know. I think a lot of people get their wisdom from Mr. Google. They Google's got all the answers. And instead of immersing yourself in looking at and reading everything from the history of how this got to be this way
Mhm.
to immersing yourself in some young poet or some jazz musician or to go and eat a different kind of food and where did that come from? I only just recently found out that Korean fried chicken came from the black men that went to Korea and made fried chicken over there.
How cool is that?
Yeah, I didn't know. So,
Wow.
it takes time for us to kind of to get in that frame of mind where we get out of our own need for just how I want it into a bigger space for how other people might see it and live it.
I think too, there's immersion, but there's the retaining of the self. I remember being in France, and I would follow people around who were speaking English because I hadn't spoken English in months, and it's like, "Oh, that's what it sounds like," or,
Yeah.
you'd smell something. How is it that you want to experience but not lose self? How do you become a part of a greater picture but not lose the gift of self?
Mhm,
So that yes, we have 2 Brazilian sisters who are arriving on Sunday to spend some months perfecting their English.
mhm,
We just had 2 Indonesians who came and went, and they worked on their so this is part of our helping the congregation. We're the English-speaking area, so they're different regions and provinces are sending people that they see as leaders
mhm,
to come and work on their English and to have an international experience. They're a gift to us in what they bring of themselves as their Brazilian culture. And
mhm,
then so many times, the sisters who leave, to go back home, especially the latest ones the Indonesians who left a few months ago, we asked them, "What stays with you? What was most important for you when you were here?" And they said, "Relationship, relationship."
mhm,
So, relationship crosses everything. It crosses borders of language and culture and everything. The respect, the honoring, the recognition of gift that each one brings. Yeah, that's what makes me excited. I don't need to change myself from myself, the very core of who I am. But I certainly need to take in everything that's around me as much as possible so that it enhances who I am. Because if we all changed and became the same person, then forget that. That's so boring.
when you think about retaining yourself, but also appreciating the other and what the other brings to the table as the image of, you remember, we used to have this saying that America was the melting pot. Well, that shifted to a better image of being a salad bowl because
Yes.
that melting image was a little bit too like goop
Yep.
that you but this salad bowl where you stay a carrot and I stay a tomato or another person stays a radish, our textures are there, our fullness of being, but there's something about us being together that makes the thing better.
Right. When you said before how we as sisters, as vowed religious, can be models or examples, or maybe companions or presents to that which is needed now, sisters have always looked for the needs of the times and adjusted accordingly, very flexibly.
Mhm,
And now is an interesting time to
mhm,
look for what is needed. And one of the first words you talked about was listening.
yeah,
How many people just want to be listened to
yeah,
because their voices are not recognized
yeah,
or acknowledged, and how easy that could be to do. It's not anything. You have to go out and get a degree, but just I mean, even looking a person in the eyes, seeing the other person. When I was teaching, middle school, yay,
Yeah.
uh, I remember the principal came into the classroom and she looked at the kids and said, "Now we need volunteers to do such and such after school these days. Who's gonna do it?" And I looked at her and I said, "They might need to check with their parents first." "Oh, okay. Well, you get back to me." And she walked out. And the
Mhm.
kids just looked at me. I had defended them. I paid attention to them. I knew what their lives were like. We always gave each other report cards in October, and the kids would give me a report card.
Mm.
And the number one thing was, "You listen to us." And I'm
Yeah.
not saying that to brag. I'm saying that as a reflection of a need
Right.
of, "You listen to us. You see us."
It's the real gift that belongs to inclusion, isn't it? When you
Yeah.
when you feel that you are being listened to, you feel included. Your voice is heard. There's something about that presence, isn't it? I just wish that we would have more of an opportunity in this country to experience the gift of people from other places, but outside of this context. Because you don't know what you don't know until
Right.
right? Until
Yeah,
you come across something and you think this is the way it is, and this is not the way it is.
exactly.
The part where we get to sit down together or even on other with Zoom now on other parts of the world to
Mhm. Yeah.
what do you what's your experience?
Of listening? First of all, when you were talking, I was just thinking about how loud people have become and how they yell at each other and not even at, but over each other, so
Okay.
that there's no such thing as conversation.
Mm,
Con with, you know, you're
mhm,
always, "This is what I think, and I'm gonna tell you," and okay, which goes back to my theory of education in that don't tell me what to think. Help me to find what's best for me.
mm.
And, geez, I don't know how to other than to model it myself, I don't know what else in the listening category. I actually said to someone, "You know what we should do? We should set up a table at the county fairgrounds when they have their county fair, and we should just have a listening table, and we'll just say, 'Come, sit, talk, do whatever you'd like. I'm here to listen to you.'"
Mm,
I said, "I bet people would show up." I mean, that's simplistic. Sometimes I feel people are so wounded that their space for listening is very small
yeah.
because they haven't been able to express who they are. And so they've wanted a safe place to be able to say, "Here I am. This is me." And you do listen, and then they slowly are able to create that space within where they can listen too.
Ultimately, that's the gift of formation, isn't it? When you said earlier about to become your best self, it's when you feel heard, when you
Mhm,
find people interested in who you are and
mhm.
what you need and what you dream about. And I think a good formator, somebody that is a good listener.
You have to be.
Mm,
And I appreciate having gone through spiritual direction, training too,
mhm,
so that I could have some help in giving me some skills for listening. But I believe, especially that year in France, the first few months where I couldn't speak, all I could do was listen. And I listened and listened and listened until I was able to be fluent enough to have my own voice. And I
uh,
knew I was fluent when I could tell the kids to go to the bathroom and get to bed because I was in charge of a dorm.
explain what spiritual direction is.
Sure. For me, spiritual direction is companioning someone on their spiritual journey. So there's a director and a directee. And the director, hopefully, has been skilled. And the directee comes in and says, "You know what? Here's my life with God. Can you companion me as I walk this way?" So it's really walking with someone on their journey with God
Mhm.
and knowing when to ask the right questions, knowing when to just listen. It's not counseling.
No.
It's not counseling. It's the looking at where's your soul work
Mhm.
and how do you help someone else with recognizing and realizing their own soul work that they're doing. I guess that's
Yeah.
the best way to say.
Well, this is great, and it's always good to stop when we want more. Before we kind of conclude our conversation, what's love got to do with all this that we've been talking about?
I'm glad you're not gonna ask me to sing. What's love got to do with it?
There you go.
Well, if God is love, and love is God, and God is in everything, then love's got everything to do with it. And I'm thinking about our own title of our religious title of our Wheaton Franciscan group, which is the Franciscan Sisters, Daughters of the Sacred Hearts of Jesus and Mary. How
Mhm.
do we find those hearts within ourselves that can connect with other hearts? But love goes way beyond that. And this is to St. Francis's credit. God is in everything.
Mm,
God is in everything. How can we not just kneel down before
mm.
all of it in awe instead of bombing it, talking over it, objectifying people because it's everything.
It's
Yeah.
everything. Thank you so much, Melanie. This has been great to get to know you a little bit better, get to hear some of your stories of being immersed in accompanying people to be their best selves. So I
Thanks,
appreciate
Brenda.
it. All right.
Thank you.
Bless you. And now for the wrap up. You have just had a human experience from a spiritual being. We have so much to learn. So go forth to love and speak the truth. Ad majorem Dei gloriam. A couple of announcements. Don't forget to rate and follow us on Apple Podcast or Spotify. We are on Facebook at Love Speak Truth, and visit our website at www.lovespeaktruth.org. For a few credits, when all is said and done, I give thanks and credit for sponsors, producers, and contributors who made this podcast possible. Mega shout out to IBVM Region Leadership, Megan Butel, Jennifer Schmitz, Laurenti Wright for the keyboard music, the late Sister Maria Beer IBVM for her composition of the music Women Bearing Witness. It takes a village, folks. Thanks for listening to Love Speak Truth.